Hello everyone, I'm super excited because I'm on my bike. My bike makes me emotional. The first bike ride of the season, and I'm pumped. I'm gonna work on a couple different things. The new thing for me is that I've sold my X100V and I'm taking on my bike rides, the OM1, and it's an amazing little camera that I can stick in my backpack, and it's more versatile than the X100V. Even though that thing is awesome and versatile, the OM1 is amazing. I got an ND filter on it right now to do some video and stuff when I want to. And I'm going to be using that for my bike rides, and I'm super excited for that. Number two is I got about 30 pounds to lose. I'm going to lose 30 pounds this season. The third thing I want to do on these bike rides is get better at photography. I've been shooting for 20 years. You can always get better. I think I've been guilty lately of shooting pretty things. Just like, here's a pretty thing, I'm going to take a picture of it. This photo is probably, I'm going to put it up, my favorite photo I've taken this year. And it's just of a truck. It's just a pretty thing, which is fine. But I want to work on layers and the relationship between 2, 3, 4, or 5 different things in a photo. 5 might be too many, but a couple, 2 or 3 different things. I've always thought about that. I've done a lot of it, and but I want to focus more on that and make my photos a little bit more complicated. And I also want to work on not getting killed in the street because I forgot my bike helmet, even though my wife texted me before I left and said, "Don't forget your bike helmet, and don't leave the bike helmet at home, people." Let's go around and see some pretty stuff, and hopefully work on some layers with the Olympus OM1, my new bike riding companion.
This is definitely not me trying to work too much in layers, right? This is just a shot I've taken many times. The cool path in the cemetery, you can't really go wrong with that. However, if I want to kind of take credit here, I think that this photo does have some layers. I think we have this pathway here that brings us in, right? We have this canopy that we're going to enter, and we have all these tree branches kind of pushing us to the right into right here, right? To these different kind of branches and leaves. And then those are kind of pointing us right to there, right to that mausoleum, right? So honestly, actually, this was all very well constructed, right? By a master photographer who knew immediately all those elements when he first took the photograph, right? I wish anyway, but you know what I always tell my students is to apply, just take the credit and don't worry about if you didn't intend all those things when you first took the photograph. That's me struggling already. I barely have been here, and I'm just wondering what I can take photographs that's going to be a little bit more, layered than my normal fare. And so in a little bit of despair at this moment, I really thought about quitting, but then, I kind of see this little scene over here, and I kind of just completely fall back on stuff I've done a million times.
I cannot deny just the simple beauty of backlit leaves. Gorgeous stuff.
Anytime you have backlit stuff, I think, especially with leaves, I think it adds something to the photograph. And leaves especially are so good at illumination and giving you that ability to get those veins and all those details. I love that a lot. This one's one of my favorite photographs of the trip. It's just nice and simple, just a leaf, but there's a lot of detail there. The OM1 with the 12 to 40 2.8 really has a lot of just beautiful colors, and the way it renders the details is very nice. It's a very cool photograph. And the last one's kind of fun. I like the light bouncing around, and the little flare there is pretty cool. I just really enjoy the rendering of that 12 to 40. We'll continue by completely ignoring my directive of trying to have more complicated, more interesting photographs by just taking more pretty pictures of pretty things like this. When you have a camera that renders things so beautifully, though, it's okay. And this one is another example. They say that Micro Four Thirds does not give you as much background blur as the other formats like APS-C, full frame. But you know what? Honestly, I don't care 99% of the time because this still looks really pretty to me. Here's a photo that I kind of like, and you can see some of the flaws in Micro Four Thirds if you zoom in a little bit and really kind of see what's going on with the background's just a little bit busier, a little tighter, right? A little bit more hectic. It's still really pretty, and the colors are just gorgeous. And you can also see a little bit of grain in the background. And in this photo, it's fine, and in 90% of the photos, it's fine. But it's just something to know. There's a little bit of grain back there, and when you edit like I did to this photograph and bring those darks up, you're going to get more shadow grain. And that's something that you have to expect with Micro Four Thirds if you underexpose photographs, even at the base ISO, which is 200 here. Here is another scene I found. I really like this one. It's got a ethereal quality, like a little world quality to it. My original edit was a lot darker though. So here's me in Lightroom, and I'm just gonna boost the overall exposure a little bit, right? To give us an overall more of a punch. And I'm going to zoom in and kind of recognize I need to recover that highlight for the detail. That's the most critical part of the entire photograph. And then the only other thing to do is really apply a little bit of a vignette, which is pretty cool. That's the final photograph. I like it a lot, but of course I can't stop tinkering with things. So right before I put that photograph in here, I just cropped it a touch. You know, Micro Four Thirds gets a lot of flack for being low resolution. And you know what? I don't care. When I'm doing something like YouTube and social media, it's got more than enough resolution. And I would just know that for this single photograph, I wouldn't be able to crop as deeply into the photograph as I am right here. However, for a video, for social media, that kind of stuff, I've just created a new composition and it's still more than enough resolution to do that. Still at the cemetery, I'm going to get serious now. I'm going to use multiple elements. So we're going to get close to this scene right here. Here's a 24 millimeter full frame perspective, and I don't think it's quite there. So I'm going to zoom in, and wow, that's quite a bit better. We get the dramatic light. We're really focused on what's in the middle. I kind of like how I'm a little bit tilted, right? Or I might be perfectly straight. This graveyard is really got some dips and valleys to it. So we got some tombstones moving here and there, but this is definitely I'm starting to get something just a little bit better, even though it's mostly just framing. There's a little relationship between the foreground and the background, right? Speaking on the different ways that the tombstones look and the architecture and all that. So I think it's getting there. I'm doing a little bit better. This is one of my favorites, I think, of the entire thing. You can see how uneven the ground is. So we have that kind of moving. You can also see in my editing how I took several different shots, but I kind of like that first one. But we needed to kind of go in and fix it a little bit. I have some presets that I use, and so this one kind of was made for this preset here. I've called the Film Dream Monochrome, which I dig, and I think that looks good right out of the box. I didn't really have to change anything, which is the point of having presets, right? However, I did want to adjust it just a touch. I think it looks good as is, but recover a little bit of highlights and just add a little bit of contrast. Just kind of makes the photo, looks a little bit better. I'm off my bike now and I'm just walking around and looking at some things to focus on. I'm just going to use the old school method of low depth of field to focus on the greenery here and let the fallout kind of tell the rest of the story. So we could definitely still tell this is at a cemetery. You can almost see the words died over there on the bottom right corner. I probably should have recognized that a little bit more in the scene and backed up a little bit, but oh well, that's all right. That's the way it goes. That would have been a little bit better, but it is one of those things where there's life everywhere, there's green, and then we have this cemetery here. It's kind of interesting. I don't like this photograph very much. I took it, and I think that I would have liked this better if I was using a lens with a wider aperture, so then I could blur the foreground. The foreground to me is just a little bit ugly. It would have been cool with some more green and some purple in there, but that kind of those dead leaves, I don't like them personally. I think if I'm going to make a message with this one, it's going to be that life and the vibrancy in the foreground going into the background with the tombstones. And then this ends up being my favorite probably photo of the entire day. This is exactly kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about relational elements, elements in the photographs that have some kind of relationship. And when we look back there, we could see Moors on that tombstone way in the back. And then in the front, we just have this cool color, this blur, this darkness. It matches the mood and feel, I think, of a cemetery a little bit. I dig that a lot. When we zoom in, you can see how kind of interesting that blur is. And this ends up being a photo I liked, and I don't think I would have taken it without being really, really intentional on trying to get something a little bit more, with a little bit more meaning and a little bit more layers into it. This is another one I liked. We're using some leading lines to lead us into the photograph. We have some darkness on the edges. I have this tree that's really blurry, and everything's leading us right into that top of that tombstone there. But I really dig when you zoom in. You can see what kind of master photographer I was to not let any of the branches touch touch the tombstone, even though I do not remember doing that in the field at all. Hey, I'm going to take credit for it. You should too. Take credit for anything in your photographs. Just do it. This is the kind of shot that makes me happy that I sold the X100V for the OM1 to be able to do these kind of pictures. It's just got the ultimate versatility all the way through to being able to get extremely close. And if you look at this photograph, it's a very nice one. Full sun, but it's rendered very nicely. And the details getting up close is near macro level. And being on the bike and being able to get really wide and get really, really close and get very narrow, macro-like shots are what makes the OM1 system something so special for me to be able to go on and do this on a bike ride without a lot of weight.
I'm about to go up this big hill. Let's see how I'm breathing when I get on the top. It doesn't look very big from here, does it? Holy.
Here I am down the street trying to avoid my shadow in my photographs and just get something pretty. I like this one. It's got some nice background blur, and the relationship between the green in the sign and the green in the front is pretty cool. Here's another shot. I'm just reversing the focus. I think I definitely like the one where the NP Mart is more out of focus, much more. Just down the street is this scene that I've probably gone by 20, 30 times. My intentional journey today, though, has forced me to try to look at it in a different way. And I know that I have a live ND filter on the OM1 that I could try, and I'm going to do some blur. And I got this truck coming by, and it's kind of cool. It's a little different, but I don't think it's that great, right? Here's kind of a neat scene where I think I was at 1/10 of a second, I think, and this car came by pretty quickly. It's kind of neat when you zoom in. I like the way the rims look here. This is my favorite shot of the scene. I love this shot, actually, and I don't think I would have ever taken this one if I wasn't out there being intentional about layers and using the live ND filter that is built into the OM1. And it's just a cool little shot here. I like the color, I like the brightness, and I like how there's this old school building in the back and this new shiny car kind of blurred in the front. I just really dig this one. A little bit farther down is another scene I've seen. Looked really, really pretty in the light, and then in the shadow at the bottom, I thought I could do something like this, which is really cool. And then this is a better crop, and I can kind of see that the guy's looking over there. You can see his earbuds right there. The OM1 is just really fantastic. You could see his earbuds. You could see some detail and definition. That's really cool, and this ended up being my favorite from this spot for sure. As I continued to ride home, I stopped doing B-roll and I just shot a couple things. Here's some shadows and some patterns and repetition, just something interesting that I saw on my journey. Another one where I like the color, the combination of the green, the yellow, and the red is really cool, and there's some shapes and form in there. I enjoy this one a lot. I did do this one on the OM1's high resolution handheld mode, which is 50 megapixels, and when I zoom in a lot, you could see that these are not it's not a gimmick. There's a lot more detail there under the 50 megapixels. And for static scenes like this, the camera does an incredible job of us being able to punch above our weight with micro four thirds and get more resolution. And it really does matter. It actually works really well. And here's another scene. I literally live 3 blocks away from the scene, and I've never taken a photo here. This looks like it's something out in New York or some other place. I love the lines and the shapes and the color and the blues and the reds and all that stuff. And then the last photo of the day here, another one that's just a architectural shot that's a lot of fun with the patterns and the shapes and forms. And I think I looked at it a little differently today and found some of those combinations to be more interesting than I have in the past, just by changing my mindset of getting out there and looking for different layers and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed checking these photos out, and let's lose another 30 pounds this season and take some better photographs. Thanks for being along for the ride. If you have any questions, throw them below.